So this is my 2012 Jeep Grand Cherokee Overland. I noticed an oil leak underneath, and it turns out it's this power steering line. You can see the steel line in the back as it makes the bend around the corner. It looks to be pretty ripe, so I'm going to make a video about changing this line. So this is the new line here. Most of the time you'll see the entire assembly online, and that's both power steering lines, but it's around 350 bucks. But I was able to find just this line on Amazon for around 50 bucks. So I'll leave a link in the description of where you can get this line. So now that I have the vehicle on ramps and safety stands, I'm going to go ahead and remove this cover. There's 2 bolts in the back and then 3 bolts across the front. There is also 2 bolts on the side. And you'll also need to pull these tabs out. I probably don't have to tell you, but dealing with rusted clips is its own special set of skills. All I can say is try to jam in whatever you can and wedge whatever you can so that either it comes apart or it breaks apart. And I was able to grab the clip with a pair of vice grips, and it's slowly coming off. So with the cover off, I have a good look at the line that I need to disconnect. So I'm going to get a drain pan and start to remove the hose clamps, and I'll update you when that's done. This clamp has to be loosened off. I was able to get a 10mm wrench on it and a little bit of WD-40 on the back, and it's coming loose. And you'll notice I have gloves on right now. I suggest you wear gloves anytime you deal with oil. I've messed with oil and coolants my whole life, and now I'm dealing with dermatitis. And if you're young and dealing with oil and fluids, wear gloves. Your skin will thank you for it later. I'm going to go ahead and pop this clip here. Right there. And behind that black cover is a little C-clip. I'm going to get something in there to pry that off, and hopefully the tubing will pull out of there. And on the other end is just a squeeze clamp. So I'm just going to go get a tray, and I'll show you how this comes apart. So this is the clip that has to get out of there. I'm not going to be able to video me removing it because it's going to take 2 hands. These clips can go flying, so you really have to be careful. But I'm going to basically pry this out of here and try to work it down and grab it with my other hand so it doesn't go flying. Okay, so I was able to get the clip out. I used an ice pick to start it, and then I finished it off with this dental tool. And then I was able to grab it with my hand. So I believe that tubing is essentially free and will pull out of there, but I'm just going to put the tray underneath before I start pulling it. On the electronic pump side, I used a pair of pliers to squeeze that clamp and used a flat screwdriver to push this out. So it's almost ready to release from the pump. The last thing I did before I disconnect the lines is I separated this clamp so that it comes off around the tubing so that I'm not dealing with it while it's all full of oil. So I'm ready to pull everything apart right now. So I pulled this line out first. I'm going to stick the yellow plug that came with the new line into this line here. It's the yellow plug and the retainer, or the cover. Well, after all, I'm just going to let it drain. The yellow cover, I believe, is meant to go on the tubing, but I have to disconnect it from the pump side anyway, so I might as well just let this drain into my tank. While it's draining, I'm going to put this cover onto the new tubing and get it ready to go back into place. So now that the clamps are disconnected, it's drained on both ends. I'm able to remove the old one from up here, and then I'll just take the clamp off of this, put it on the new one, and put it back into place. Okay, so I have the clamp on the new one. I have the clip cover on the new one. I'm ready to drop it into place. Okay, make sure this end is nice and clean before you put the tubing in, and press it in as hard as you can. You're going to get these rubber clamps back on both that line and that line, and we're going to slide this back down to where the metal clamp is going to connect it to. Make sure the orientation of this clip is the same way that you took it out. There's a little open spot on this side on the back and on this side that correspond to the 3 spots that the clip retains. So it goes on, it goes back like this, if you can see that. And using 2 hands, I put that back into place. It snapped really nicely. And now I'm just going to slide the cover over and cover this back up. And that's it. That side's all done. The other side is a squeeze clamp. So with this side now connected to the pump, the other side connected with the clip, the only thing left to do is to put these clamps back into place and the rubbers. I'm not going to bore you with putting everything back together. It's pretty straightforward, but I'll touch base with you when everything's back together. So before I put all the covers back on, I'm going to top up the fluid and try it out just in case I have any leaks. It's important that you know to not use regular power steering fluid. You need to find a fluid that has this 11655 rating on it. Of course, Mopar has it, but this is also available on Amazon and it has that same 11655 rating on it. Now I started it and ran it and just briefly moved the steering wheel back and forth because I'm on ramps, but you can see the bubbles are still coming up in the reservoir, so the system is still filling up. So be patient when you fill it. Run it, fill it, run it, fill it, and don't overfill. For the clip that I had to grab with the vice grips, I chased this thread with an 8mm with a die, and then I'm just going to put an 8mm nut on the back of it. So there's the line. You can see it coming out of the electric power steering pump, coming across into the hose. So that was a pretty easy job, honestly, pretty quick and very inexpensive. I'll leave in the comments some of the items that I purchased so that it's easy for you to find.